Welcome to High Point University's How to Land That Job series, part of HPU's commitment to fostering life skills and preparing students to render value in the global marketplace. Today's episode features Dr. John C. Maxwell, best-selling author, internationally renowned leadership expert, and High Point University's executive coach in residence.
All right. Well, hello everyone. How are you today? Well, good. Well, we're so glad that you took some time to come and chat with us today, and I'm excited to be here. So, our special guest is John Maxwell. So, he is the John is a #1 New York Times best-selling author, coach, and speaker. He has been called the #1 leader in business by the AMA and the world's most influential leadership expert by Inc. His organizations have trained millions of leaders from every nation. And we are honored and so excited that he is HPU's own executive coach in residence. Started, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Megan Parker, and I am the Director of Corporate Relations here, and it is my honor to sit next to you today.
Great to be with you. Great to be with you, Megan, and great to be with the students. I'm just very excited about what we can maybe accomplish in the next hour.
Yes, exactly. So, we'll get kicked off with our first question.
Okay.
So this morning I was looking on Twitter, and I actually saw a quote that was posted yesterday by you, and it was, "Once you've tasted significance, success will never satisfy." So can you break down the definition of success and significance when referring to leaders and leadership?
Be glad to. Success is pretty much what I am able to accomplish for myself and for my family. And we think a lot about our career and being very successful in it. But success is pretty much about me, and significance is about others. And the question is not, am I successful in life? The question is, have I taken that success in my life and have I turned it into significance? Because I have a lot of successful friends, I know a lot of successful people, and many of them are not happy. Many of them are not fulfilled at all. But the moment that they cross that line and they go from success, and it's kind of about all the stuff that I have or that I'm getting for myself, and they cross the line, Megan, and now they're using all their giftedness and their resources to add value to people and to make a difference in their life. I've never met a person that really spent time with significance that was unhappy or that was not fulfilled. And so I discovered that, I've been very blessed, I've been very successful, but I just discovered that we are created for something more than ourselves. We're created for others. And the moment that we begin to pour our life into others and really intentionally add value to them, then we cross that significance threshold, which I think really brings fulfillment and purpose and just a real sense of well-being that we're making a difference, a positive difference in people's lives.
So it kind of goes back to why.
Yeah, why? Yeah, it goes to Simon Sinek's why. I mean, why am I here? And I think we're all here and gifted and created to help others and to make a difference.
Yes, definitely. So I think that most people do not thrive when they are micromanaged. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So could you elaborate on the difference between managers and leaders and why leaders are so important?
Well, yeah, I'll be glad to. Well, first of all, managers are very important. And when I think of management, I think of people who focus on today, people who focus on details, and they're essential for any business or for any organization. Leaders have a bigger picture. Leaders have more of a sense of tomorrow than perhaps today. And I think in a culture in business that really works best is when you have very good managers that value leadership and very good leaders who value management. Because I think that to really be cohesive in a company, the most important thing is to have each other have great appreciation for what the other person does. And it's not like, wow, I'm really important and you're a little less important. So to me, a great culture is one where everybody has their place in an organization, but everybody knows why they have that place. And everybody values that person in that place and pretty much says, if you weren't there, we just wouldn't be what we are without you. So I think that, of course I teach leadership, so I'm really known for leadership. But let me just say this, a leader that doesn't appreciate management or understand it will not be a very good leader, because he or she won't be able to connect with those on that level. Just like a manager who doesn't appreciate the vision and the risk-taking and the bigger picture, I think it's really developed a great culture. It's learning to value each person. So one more quick thing. One of the things I've always tried to do as a leader is when I have different people with different responsibilities in the room, is I try to let everybody know why they're in the room. And so Megan, you're in this room because you really manage the operations for us, and we need you. And so when everybody has a kind of a place at the table, and they feel that place is valued at that table, I think you really then bring the best out of people.
So we have a lot of college students in the room today. We have some parents here too. Let's talk a little bit about failure, because I think some people are afraid of failure. So can you talk about how failure is not a sign of weakness?
Failure is, no, it's not a sign of weakness. Well, you know what, let me just say this, let me just make sure. If you just fail constantly, you got a problem, okay? So I started to kind of side in with you, and I thought, well, I know a few people that seems to be their spiritual gift, you know what I mean? I said, oh, yeah, wow, this is interesting. Here, okay. I was with just Dr. Cuvade a moment ago doing an interview, and I talked briefly about this, but maybe a little more extensive with you. I think the big mistake that we make is that we separate failure and success. And we put success over here and be successful, and failure over here and don't fail. I mean, be successful, don't fail. And that's the most unrealistic expectation. I've never known anybody that was successful that didn't have a lot of failures. You follow me? And I think that success and failure, Megan, need to go together. Because they do go together. In life, they go together. I do, for 40 years, I have every month had what I call a learning lunch, where I sit down with somebody better, bigger, faster, smarter than me, and I ask them 7 questions, and in the interview and asking them questions, one of the questions I ask them is what's the greatest lesson that you've ever learned? And 90% of the time when they give me whatever that lesson is, it includes a great amount of failure. That well, that's where I learned that this, and so I think that failure needs to be embraced. Mark Cole, who's the co-owner and CEO of the John Maxwell Enterprise, is sitting right here on the front row with me. And Mark has this expression of people need to, just like we look for a return on our investment, or we look at a return on our time, he said people need to look for a return on their failure. And I love that. I love that thought. What's your ROF, okay? What is your ROF? Because failure has something great to teach us. And by the way, there are in failure, there are good misses and there are bad misses. And what I found is successful people have a lot of misses, but they're good misses. A good miss is something like, I didn't get what I was looking for, or I didn't get what I was hoping for, but I learned from it. That's a good miss. You follow? Wow, I've learned from it. Or I didn't get, wow, okay, that was a miss, but guess what? I moved a little closer to where I want to go. So it was a kind of a failing forward process and a failing forward movement. And so what I would say to all of you is that the value of failure is learning and improvement. And so when people talk about failure, Megan, when they're done talking about their miss, their loss, their failure, their whatever, I always ask them the same question. The question is, what did you learn? What did you learn out of that? And if you've learned something that's going to help you in life out of failure, can I tell you something? It was a good failure. It was a good miss. If you didn't learn, it was a bad miss. And so I think that when it comes to failure, we need to understand that almost all of our learning, almost all of our improving, almost all of our growth comes out of our misses, not out of our hits. When we succeed, there's a tendency to celebrate, but not reflect, think, ask the hard questions, and those type of things. So I just want to, let's just put it this way. I have a high rate of failure in my life. Almost every day I have a miss, because I'm taking risk and I'm trying things, but it's okay because I'm learning. And when you have the right attitude toward failure, you'll really do it. I wrote a book several years ago called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And that book is all about what did you learn in your losses? Because if you really learned in your losses, it's not lost. I'm going to just can I take 2 more minutes on this? I was at an interview with the CEO of, I think it's the second largest tech company in the world. And so I was asking about his mistakes and his failures. And he was very open about, oh man, we've really made a lot of mistakes. We've not always done it right. And so I asked him, I said, well, let me ask you a question. Of all the mess ups that you've had in your life, which one would you like to go back and do over? I mean, in other words, you get another, you could go back and, oh, wow, I could fix that. And he said something very interesting. He said, I have a lot of places I could go do overs. I mean, I've messed up a lot. But he said, I don't think I would go back and do over any of my mess ups. And I thought, wow, this is very interesting. So I probed a little bit. I said, why wouldn't you go back and do a do-over? And he said, because in the mess ups and in the wrong decisions and in the losses and the failures, he said, what I did is I learned from them, and it built character in me. And he said, now that I look back, if I went back and did one of those over, I would have lost the lesson, and I would have lost the strengthening of my character. And he said, I'm not willing to give up lessons and strengthening of character for a do-over in my life. And I just love that. I love that, Megan, because I thought he really understands failure. He really understands the value of learning from that failure.
The learning is the fun part.
Yeah, well. And by the way, on learning, let me just say this. On learning, I think learning is a little overrated. We need to learn to improve. So when people say they've learned something from their failure, I push it. I push that envelope just a little bit. I say, well, I'm glad you learned. Now, how did that improve you? How did you get better because of that? And so out of learning, it's not like we need knowledge. It's really what we need is improvement. The greatest gap in the world is the gap between knowing and doing. Honestly, most of the time we already know what to do. We just don't take action on it. So, the value of failure is we learn and we improve and we get better. And that's a beautiful thing.
It is. And here at High Point University, we are a God Family Country School.
Yes.
So how has your faith influenced your leadership?
My faith has influenced my leadership, first of all, because I believe that I was created for a purpose. And knowing that you're created for a purpose automatically gives you self-worth. The very fact that God would create you to do something that was of great value in this world. It means that I start my day off by saying I'm not an accident, or I'm just wondering. No. I was created for a purpose. It also lets me know that not only was I created to do something great, but I was also gifted to do something great, because the same God who created me gave you certain gifts. And those gifts are what I call enablers. They enable you to add value, to make a difference, to help people. And so now you're kind of looking at yourself and you say, I'm not only a person of self-worth, but I'm also a person that can make a difference. Now we're beginning to get what I call a foundation underneath of us that really allows us to have what I call a solid run in life. We just finished talking about failure. This is a thought that I just started working on mentally a couple days ago, Megan. So it's not a formed thought. It's not even probably a great thought yet, but it's a beginning thought. And so I want to work it a little while and see if it goes anywhere. Sometimes I have thoughts that go nowhere, okay? Yeah, let's make that real clear. Sometimes I have a thought, and 3 days later I thought, boy, that wasn't worth my time, you know what I mean? That was kind of a dead end. But I work it long enough to see if there's going to be a return out of it. And we were talking about failure. And when you've heard the expression, it's people that are kind of risk adverse, but they don't like to see people take risks. And they'll always say you need to have something you can fall back on. You know, you need to have something. Well, you need to have something to fall back. Just, if that doesn't work, you got. What are you going to fall back on? Now, that's never interested me extremely very much, because I've never really thought that falling back was probably a thing that was of great value for anything. So, but you got to have something to fall back on. Make sure you can fall back on. And the other day I thought to myself, the only falling back that I do is in the area of my faith. And I love this. When I fall back because of my faith, God catches me. And because of his unconditional love and his grace, he puts me back in the game. But I've had a lot of times where I fell back. But when I fell back because of my faith, I had someone to catch me. I had someone to unconditionally love me. I had someone to encourage me. And so I think that I think there's a beautiful fallback position to be in if you're a person of faith. I don't think you fall back in other areas of life, but I think there are times when it's good to have someone that is there to catch you and lift you and encourage you and give grace to you. And that's what faith does. That's what faith does.
So you said that to be a good leader, one must be a listener and a learner first. So can you talk more about servant leadership?
Sure. In my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, I talk about the law of addition. And the law of addition basically says that we add value to people by serving them. And I think that the highest level of leadership is servant leadership. Now that's really contrary to what we are taught many times, or what we think in the business world. But let me just kind of flesh that out for you for a moment. I think, first of all, servant leadership means I value everybody. The very fact that I would serve you would mean I value you. Let me just put it this way: you don't serve people you don't value. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to add value to people you don't value. It's not going to happen. So I think servant leadership, first of all, is an attitude and a disposition. It's a way of living. It's a way of thinking that allows me to walk slowly through the crowd, value the people, help them where they are, and be glad to make a positive difference in their life. So I think it sets the environment for all of us as leaders to really be effective. I think it's also a safeguard against what I would call leadership with wrong motives. Because the worst thing that happens, you see, what leaders do, when people say, what do leaders have in common, it's very simple. All leaders have only one thing in common, and they see more than others see, and they see before others see. That's that That's the edge. That's the leadership difference between people who can lead well and people who can't. Now, the moment that I understand that I can see more than others see, and the moment that I understand that I can see before others see, I am already at a great advantage. You have to understand, I'm at a huge advantage. If I can see more than you and I can see before you, trust me, I'm pretty much going to win. Now the question is, when a leader can see more or before other people, the question is, what is that leader going to do with that advantage? Do I take that advantage, that edge, that leadership edge, do I take it to help me? Or do I take it to help you? And that's the difference between a leader that leads well and a leader that doesn't lead well. I talk about the fact that everything rises and falls on leadership. The rising of leadership is based on competence and good values. The falling of leadership, Megan, is determined by incompetence and bad values. So when I think of servant leadership, it's a purifier. It's a purifier of motives. When I lead because I want to add value to people, it really helps a lot of people. When I lead because I want people to add value to me, I'm going to be now manipulative, and I'm not going to help others. In fact, I have the privilege to be with leaders of nations continually. And in fact, since I'm done here, we'll fly to Paraguay, and I'll be with the president of Paraguay, and I'll be doing transformation in that country, and then we'll get on a plane and we'll go to Brazil, and we have a meeting scheduled with the president of Brazil to talk about values and leadership. So I'm with a lot of leaders. And when I'm with them, and I'm just alone in a room with them, and I'm not like with the handlers and staff and other people, I always like to ask them this question. The question is very simple. Since you have been leading the country, are the people better off now than they were before you led the country? In other words, are you adding value to them? Or could it be that you're better off, but they're worse off? And so once that you understand that leadership, the leadership holds a lot of control and a lot of power. Servant leadership takes power and control, and it regulates us to do the right thing. And the moment that I feel that as a leader I should be served, I'll begin to manipulate you, but the moment that I realize that I am to serve you, I'll value you. Erin Miller is on the front row too, and she's our content curator. Erin does a lot of content for Mark and me in our speaking. And Erin, maybe 6 months ago, gave me this, and it's just powerful, and it fits right here, Megan. Here's what she shared with me that now I share and teach and put in books. And, I give her the credit, but I take the royalties, okay? So, but here's what she gave me that's so true. If I see you as hurting, I'll help you. If I see you as broken, I'll fix you. But if I see you as valuable, I'll serve you. There's a lot of difference between 1 and 2 and number 3. And I think that when we see people as valuable, the automatic response, honestly, is just to serve them. And the moment we can see all of our people as valuable, now all of a sudden we're creating a culture, we're creating an environment where people really do well. People prosper. People really prosper in an environment that values them. And servant leadership underlies value in people. So anyway, that's my thought on servant leadership.
I love it. I love it. So we at HPU are fortunate because everything we do is done to educate and add value to the lives of our students. So our purpose here is clearly defined and it's easy to see. What advice would you give to those people who work in spaces where the vision is not as easy to see?
Well, I think that question describes most people. I think most people who work in environments that are not conducive for growth, are not conducive for improvement in people's lives. In my 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership book, I talk about the law of the lid, L-I-D, and the law of the lid basically just says how well you lead determines how well you succeed. By the way, that's why I teach leadership. That's why I travel the world, because I know that to be very true. I know for every one of you, regardless of what your majors are, disciplines are, what you're going to go into as far as career, here's what I know for all of you. What I know for all of you is that wherever you land and whatever you do, your ability to lead well will determine your success more than anything else. And everything, because everything rises and falls on leadership. That's a fact. So when I teach the law of the lid, I say, like, if I'm an average leader from a 1 to a 10, so I'm a 5, okay? That's this hand here, this is John Maxwell's leadership lid. I'm an average leader, so I'm a 5. You know, there's a lot of room up above me, there's some room behind me. I'm just average, I'm in the middle. But what I know is that if I'm a 5 as a leader, this is my leadership lid, that what that means is my business, my career, whatever I am that I'm in, will become a 4. Your leadership lid will not allow you to go beyond it. Never has in the history of mankind, never will. So whatever your leadership lid is at this moment, whatever that number is in your life, that's going to be the number you're going to have in your business. And again, it doesn't matter what kind of profession you do. It doesn't have any bearing on what you do. It has everything to do with the fact that leadership is essential. Good leadership is essential for your success. So, if I'm a 5 as a leader, my business is going to be a 4. It's going to be down here. It's not going to be up here. You cannot rise above your ability to lead. Never has happened to anybody. Isn't going to happen to you. Now, the good news is you can learn to lead. Now, I'm coming to the question of Megan as far as what happens if you're not in the right leadership environment. But let me just flesh this out for you contextually for a moment. You can learn. In fact, when I'm doing Q&A about leadership, I'm often asked the question, people raise their hand, they'll ask this question, John, are leaders born? And whenever they ask me that question, I always give the same answer. Of course they are. Just think about that question for a moment. Are leaders born? Yeah, they are. That was a toughie. You got a leader hard out there. I've never met an unborn leader, okay? And don't particularly want to either. Thank you very much. Now, they're not really asking are leaders born. What they're really asking is, are there some people, when they're born, they have leadership giftedness, and so they go to the front line, and some people that are born, they don't have any leadership, so they go to the back line. That's what they're really asking. And the beautiful thing is that every one of you in this auditorium, you can learn to lead. Now, that's fact. I didn't say that all of you could become a 10 as a leader. But I said that wherever you are, you can learn to lead better. You can raise your leadership lid. That's what I'm saying. And I know that because we have the largest leadership training organization in the world. We've trained 6 million leaders in every country of the world. So we understand leadership training and development. Now here's what's beautiful. If you're a 5 as a leader, and so your business is going to be a 4, if you start learning how to lead, what do? You start lifting that lid. And when you lift that lid, now what's beautiful is now your business has room to really grow. Because basically, when people say, how do I grow a business? It's very simple. Grow leaders. If you grow leaders, you grow your business. And that's the way it works. Now, to the question on, well, what happens? I mean, this isn't High Point University now. That's where I got my degree, but now I'm in a job. And so what do you have in your jobs? The first question I would ask if I went to any place to work, well, the first question I would ask is, I want to know about the leadership. Is the leadership good? Is the leadership lid high? Because if the leadership lid is high, that means you can come in that business and you can just go right on that. But if the leadership, let's say you go into a company that has bad leadership, there are 3. Well, you go in, you may have good gifts, you may have all kind of skill level, but you're doing this number, and it's just no fun. You know, how many of you want to go to work every day and hit your head on the lid? You know, in fact, here's what happens. People get into cultures that are not growth-oriented. not leadership oriented. And this is what happens to them. They go in, they want to do better, they want to make a difference, and hey, they were schooled to make a difference and live extraordinary lives, and they're doing this now. So what happens normally is that after a while, if you're in this kind of a culture, and the first thing you say is, well, it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't hurt anymore because you've settled. You've dumbed down your life now because you had people that were poor leaders over you. And this is a sad thing, because when a person no longer reaches and stretches, no matter where they go, they're just going to be jumping at this level. So what you have to do in that environment, in fact, I wrote a book, quite a few years ago, called The 360-Degree Leader, which is a book about how do you influence people above you, beside you, and beneath you. And if you're in a culture that doesn't put a premium on growth and a value on learning and it's not an empowering environment, you probably need to get out of that environment and go somewhere else, because you want to get into an environment that will really allow you to reach your potential. Because when you think of High Point University, everything here is conducive for you learning and growing and dreaming and believing and stretching and taking risks. You're in this kind of a beautiful environment. But when you leave here, you want to make sure that you kind of either create that environment for your own business as you started, or you get into an environment that has a lid that's pretty high, no doubt.
So, I'd love to throw it out to the audience for some questions. Who has some questions? I see one down here.
First of all, Dr. Maxwell, thank you very much for your time.
I'm glad to be here. What's your name?
Andrew.
Andrew, nice to meet you. John's my name. Nice to meet you.
I was wondering, how do you motivate yourself? How do you keep that drive to always continue to grow and all that?
Andrew's asking, because I'm not sure you can hear him. Andrew's asking the question, how do I motivate myself? How do I keep that drive to keep going forward? And it's a question I'm often asked, and the answer is quite simple. The reason I'm here today with you is very simple. Very simple. I'm here to add value to you. At the end of this hour, I want every one of you, the students, to walk out and say basically to yourself, you don't have to say it to anyone else, John Maxwell helped me today. I learned something that I can use in my life. I learned something I can use in my future. But I'm a little bit better after my hour with him than I would have been if I would have come in and been a part of the Q&A forum. That, Andrew, is what keeps me in the game. Adding value to people and having people around the world every day, emailing just through all the social media, just say, you helped me, you changed my life. And I hear that every day. People say, you changed my life. And I look at them whenever they say that I changed their life. I said, no, I didn't. You changed your life. Only you can change your life. What I did is I just helped you get there. I just gave you the thoughts, the words, the encouragement that helped give it. So my motivation, if you add value to people, Andrew, every day, you'll feel very fulfilled. You'll feel very valuable. And that will be the motivation that keeps you going. It's a great question. Okay, other questions here.
All right, so right there. Yes, you.
Could you do me? Could you first of all stand? And Megan, you're going to have to help me.
Yes.
And if you don't mind, just take it and remove the mask just long enough, because you're talking to an old deaf man, okay? you got a problem, okay? It's not your problem, but the person you're going to ask the question to is like some of these bronze statues out here, okay? You maybe doesn't have capacity to hear you well. Okay.
Okay. So first of all, my name is Cameron Little, and thank you for taking time out to speak to us. My question to you is, how do you embrace others and their values, especially if they have new ideas that may be completely different from each other? How do you, as a leader, bring it all together to get to that one goal, that company or work you made?
That is a wonderful question. Could you hear him? You all could hear him. Good. What was your name?
Cameron.
Cameron.
Cameron? Good. My name's John. Nice to meet you. Good to meet you. It's a terrific question. And Cameron's talking about, okay, so I have people that don't have the values that I have. You know, what do I do with this? What do I do? Well, first of all, you value the people. See, I don't value you because you agree with me. I value you because you're God's creation. To disvalue you, to devalue you, is to devalue God. So I don't value you because you're agreeing with me. I value you because you're a created person that God has great hopes for. So that's the foundation. Now that we do that, a couple things I've learned. First of all, I've learned a lot from people that were different than me. And I've learned a tremendous, there are people that had different opinions or different environments or backgrounds they came out of. And when I sat to listen to them, it just helped me understand them better. And a lot of times it helped me also even to think better or even maybe behave better. And perhaps even say, yeah, wow, I hadn't looked at it this way. You brought some things today that really brought value to me. I want to value you regardless if you ever become, quote, like me or not. You with me? So that's unconditional. Now, as a leader, what I've discovered is this. It's very important for in your organization for your people to have the same vision and the same values. Because vision is where we want to go, and values is behavior that allows us to go there. And so vision and values have to be in alignment. For example, I have a coaching company. It's the largest coaching company in the world. We have 40,000 coaches in 162 countries. And in fact, I was just with them 2 weeks ago. We were training, maybe 3,000 of our new coaches. Okay, and one of the things I do, Cameron, is I have a 2-hour session on what we call JMT. That's John Maxwell team, JMT DNA. And for those 2 hours, I say, now let me just share with you who we are. It's like High Point University has a DNA. And this is who we are. And these are our behaviors. And what we're saying to you, if you want to be a certified John Maxwell coach, we want you to buy into these values. And if you don't, it's okay. We still value you. We'll give you your money back. You can go do something else. It's all right. It's no problem at all. But we want you to know if you're going to be with us, this is who we are. This is what we value. And it brings clarity to behavior and values to people. So I think in leadership, it's important to align values. But as far as valuing a person, I would never have to be aligned with you value-wise in order for me to value you. I value you, period, front end, regardless of who you are. Hopefully that's a good question, Cameron. Thank you very much. Boy, you got a lot of people asking questions. Let's go back here. Yes.
Hi, my name is Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. My question was, what was one of your biggest failures in your career, and how did you improve yourself because of that failure?
Okay, Emily's asked what was one of my biggest failures in my career, and because I have a couple of my team members on the front, it'd be fun to just throw them out to them because Emily, they've seen a lot of failure. In fact, sometimes I think it really is my spiritual gift. I think, wow, I didn't do that really as well as I could have or I should have. Sometimes I go back to my first kind of mess up and failure in my young career when I was 24, and I hired my first staff member, and we really worked together. We really enjoyed each other. I was naive, and I thought, oh my gosh, we'll be together for life, and we'll build great things together. And then we had a real problem with it. He had a real behavior mess up, and so I had to let him go. And Emily, I hated it. It hurt so bad. I hated that experience. It was a terrible miss by me. And I thought, okay, so here talk about. So I had a mess up. But what happens is sometimes when we have a mess up, we mess up more because we don't respond to the mess up right. And so I had a mess up. I did a bad hire, okay, one. But then I said, I'm going to let staff get close to me anymore. I poured myself into this kid, and now he's gone, and I've learned my lesson. I worked hard to help him, and he didn't care, and so I'm just going to not let anybody be close to me anymore. And so for almost the next year when I'd hire a staff member, I'd give him, if I hired you, I'd say, Emily, that's your job, you do your job, and I'll do my job, and we'll meet at the Christmas party, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to let you close to me. Why didn't I want to let you close to me? Because I'd been hurt, and I didn't want to be hurt again. Well, so I did that for about a year, and so I messed up the mess up. Because I had a mess up, and now my mess up is compounding, because now I'm not letting anybody coach. And the good news is, if I hold you, Emily, at a distance, you won't hurt me. The bad news is, you won't help me either. And so all of a sudden I said, okay, I've got to learn from this. I'm going to have to let people close to me again. But what that means is, over my lifetime, I'll be hurt. And over my lifetime, I've had probably maybe 30 or 40 hurts out of staff relationships where it just didn't turn out very well. But I also, because I'm willing to be vulnerable now and let you close to me, I've also got I've got a lot more help than I've had hurts. Are you with me? But the key here, Emily, that I want to teach is we mess up. But my wrong decision made the mess up a bigger mess. And I think it's almost like your first failure really isn't bad if you very quickly learn, adjust, improve, and fix it. It's that compounding things that begin to go. So, but now, what I would like to say to you is, I learned my lesson, and I just haven't had any failures since that time. But that isn't true. I wrote a book called Failing Forward about 20 years ago, and it's been a very popular book. And I wrote it on a cruise, okay? I wrote it on a cruise. Mark and I were going to go see the fjords of Norway. And about a week before we went to see the fjords of Norway, and I looked on my calendar and I saw it was a 2-week cruise to see the fjords of Norway. Now, I don't know if the fjords are pretty amazing. I don't know if you've seen them, but it doesn't take 2 weeks. It honestly does. I don't mean this unkindly. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I don't need 2 weeks of that, you know. And so I told Mark, I said, could we just kind of cut it down for a week? And so we had that discussion. Then we went on this wonderful 2-week cruise. See, anybody who doesn't believe in compromise hasn't been married very long, trust me. But we made the deal. The deal was I would do the 2-week, I did the 2-week cruise, but she'd let me write a book while I was on the cruise, so at least I could get something done. And so we had this wonderful, wonderful cabin right up front, glass so we could see the fjords of Norway. And I write literally by hand with a 4-color pen on a legal pad. That's how I write on my books. And so I got me a table, just a high chair like this, and glass all around, and I'm just writing. I'm writing my book, Failing Forward. I'm just writing away. Every once in a while, you know, the ship kind of slows down, which means you're coming to another fjord. And I stop and I say, oh, Margaret. Woo. Wow. Woo. We slow down and there'll be a fjord around and oh, Margaret. You know that fjord looks just like that fjord. 2 weeks are done. Book is finished. Literally, about 180 legal pages full of my handwriting. So, and then I got a rubber band that I put around it. You could tell I'm a Neanderthal man to all of you. But anyway, so I got a rubber band and we're going off of the ship and we're about halfway up the ship and Marcus stops all of a sudden, turned around and said, John, she said, I love this book. I said, well, good. I said, what's you love about it? She said, you're so open about all your failures. See it all down every page. You talk about, I messed this one up, and oh, this wasn't any good. And, well, that didn't work. And she said, the reader's going to love how honest you are and open you are. They're going to be greatly encouraged by how many mess ups you've had. I said, well, thank you. She said, there's only one problem with the book. And I said, well, what's that? She said, you didn't get all your failures in it. She said, I see a series. Failure 101, 201, 301. She said, you got a lot of these books in there. And we laughed about it, but what she said was very true. And then I did a book on, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And here's what I want you to understand. You never get so good that you don't mess up. You never kind of like, boy, there's a day where I'm going to have a lot of experience under my belt. I'm just going to be amazed. No. You never get that good. But I'm 74. I'm still having misses and mess up. But the difference is that when you handle failure correctly, failure has become one of my closest friends, honestly. And it's so huge. Erin, my content curator, has given me a signal, and what she's doing is she's telling me that I ought to talk to you for a minute about what I call walk between the lines. And what I mean by that is, as we take our life's journey, most of the time we kind of walk down the middle, okay? And over on the left is failure, and over on the right is success. And once in a while, boy, we're really over the success side. We're just amazing. And sometimes we're over in the ditch and failure, and it's not so amazing. But basically, what I'm saying to you is you just want to kind of try to walk down the middle. And when you fail, you don't beat yourself up. You see, when you get in the ditch, don't make the ditch bigger. Don't dig it. Your goal. Once you understand you're in the ditch, you got one goal. How do I get out? Let's minimize this failure so we can get going again. So you don't want to stay in the ditch of failure, but you don't also want to stay over on success, because success itself, success being good all the time is not realistic. And what I tell people all the time is, have great gratitude for your good days and your successful days. And have great appreciation for your failures and learn from them. But by and large, just get in the middle. Just get, and progress is made there. And just be authentic and don't feel like you have to always be good and portray. I think the problem with social media is people they portray themselves in a way that's totally unrealistic. And I'm going to look at them and say to myself, they're not that good. But let me tell you something, if you're in the ditch, you're not that bad either. There's a difference between I have failed and I'm a failure. But there's also a difference between I have succeeded and I'm successful. And I just think that you just need to value both of those sides, but don't stay there. Get back in the middle, and because that's where life is, and that's where you make progress. So just kind of walk between the lines, okay?
And where did this hour go?
Well, it went fast because the students are so good. Can we do one more question?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, because I see that. Yes, you can ask. Yes, okay. How are you? Nice to see you.
My name is Blaine.
I'm sorry. It's
Blaine.
Blaine.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. My name's John. Nice to meet you, Blaine.
So my question is, what are your core values, and since you became a leader, have they evolved in any way?
What are your core values, and have they evolved in any way since you became a leader?
Blaine, that's a wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Timing's everything, isn't it, Blaine? Questions over and the mic shows up. It's a great question on what are my values and how have they evolved. I think we learn good values. So in the beginning, I wouldn't have as many, hopefully, good values as I have today. But once I have a good value, the only evolution of that value is that if I really value it, it appreciates. So it enlarges. It doesn't evolve into a change. It just kind of evolves into it's bigger. It's more has more depth to it. Contextually, it's bigger and better. So in the area of values, I'll give you a story, Blaine. 20 years ago, most of you are way too young for this, but in America there was a corporate scandal with for the older people in the room, some of the parents are here, I see you. If I just say Enron, see all the parents are nodding, and it's because it was a large company out of Houston, Texas that had basically had incredible purpose statements and vision statements and value statements, but they were corrupt and distrustful and they hurt their people, and it collapsed, okay? It collapsed. And I was writing at that time for Time Warner, and they asked me to come to New York City, and in our conversation they asked me to write a book on business ethics because the companies were falling, they weren't ethical. And I told him, Blaine, I said, well, I can't write a book on business ethics. And they said, why? I said, because there's no such thing. And they got real confused. They said, what do you mean there's no such thing? And they began to talk to me about, look how unethical. I said, no. There's no such thing as business ethics. There's just ethics. You either have them or you don't. Now, if you have them, they work in business. Oh, happy day. They really work. And so they said, well, can you write a book on ethics? And I said, I'm not sure I can, honestly, because in our culture, there's no absolute truth. And so how do you write a book on ethics in that culture? So I gave it a month with my research team, and we came up with, I did write a book called Ethics 101. And it's based on the golden rule. Treat others as you like to be treated yourself. Because in the golden rule, every culture, every religion has a golden rule in it. And so I said, I'm going to start with something that everybody agrees with. Treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. That was life-changing for me, Blaine, because when I wrote that book, all of a sudden I saw the change that happened. I was interviewed by the Chicago Tribune, the Wall Street Journal, they just flocked me. They said, talk to me about ethics and values. And all of a sudden I realized that I hit on something by accident, that if we could teach people to have good values, that it would just make them more valuable. They'd be more valuable to themselves, to their family, to society, because they just, if you live by the golden rule, you're just going to be a good person. You just really are. And so it really put the emphasis on values. And today, I have a nonprofit organization, in fact, 2 of them, that we teach values around the world. And we have 23 presidents of countries that have invited us in to teach values in their countries. And so today it's a beautiful thing. So I'm just really committed to helping people embrace good values. I wrote a book. I've written several books. Okay. But I wrote a book that I would encourage you, if you're going to get one of my books, get this book, and because it's all about what Blaine, what you're talking about, and it's called Change Your World. And this book is up for a world recognition. In fact, there are only 10 books that were written in the last 12 months that are in Germany. They have this award for the book that is the most life-changing book for culture. And there are only 10 books that made it. And Change Your World was one of the 10. Now, I don't know if we're going to win, but we're one of the 10 finalists. But Change Your World is all about values and how that you can get a small group together and you can share these values and how it will really change you. It'll change your group. And we're now teaching values in public schools. And we've got 5 million students internationally that are on them, and now we're coming into America, and we're getting ready to go into the public schools to teach values there in the curriculum, not before school, after school, in the curriculum. And some good things are happening, which I don't have time to talk about now. But Change Your World, you get that book and read it, and I will promise you, it'll take you to another level as far as really making a difference for yourself. And for your friends and for your community. So thanks, Mike. It's a good question. Thank you very much.